The one constant that we can count on in today's world is actually continuous change. People in leadership roles frequently, as they look towards the future, find themselves a step or two ahead of their followers. I sometimes, in my coaching practice, tell people in leadership roles, be careful that you don't get too far ahead of your people because you may be mistaken as the enemy and get shot at. And that happens far too frequently. In my work in organizations, in change leadership, change management workshops, and strategy sessions, I've come to realize that it is not so much change that people fear as it is the loss that change brings. I remember years ago coming back from the West Coast on a flight and seeing a movie called 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And it occurred to me that there are two major celebrations in Western culture and in most cultures. The funeral is as certain a celebration as is a wedding. And in both cases, as you think about those celebrations, there are certain elements that they have in common. But in organizational life, organizations tend to be great at celebrating weddings. When there are victories, when things go well, we celebrate those victories. However, when there are losses, we tend instead to be quiet about those and sweep those under the carpet, and we expect people to move on. Because it is loss that people fear, one of the key things is to take the time to acknowledge the loss. I discovered working with a global company a few years ago that when we took the time with some of the senior managers to have them identify the changes their people had gone through over the past 12 months, and on a second flip chart, list the losses associated with those changes, they became aware of the fact that their people had experienced significant and substantial losses. What is critical to get people to move on to the future is to honor the past, celebrate the past, take a bit of the past with you, acknowledge the losses, and expect people to go through a grieving process, and legitimize the grief and allow them to go through it. And then recognize that in the change process, there are 4 essential phases. They're similar in Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model to other models that have looked at it, but the first phase is usually denial, where when the change happens, people say it's not happening, I don't believe it. Over a period of time, however, they can no longer live in denial. And when they can no longer deny it and keep their heads in the sand like the proverbial ostrich, they have to say, well, I guess the change is happening, and they go from denial to resistance. And in resistance, they may say, well, the change is happening, but I'm not going, and dig in their heels and fight it. When they realize that they're going to be left behind, eventually they'll move to the third stage. And the first 2 are danger stages, the second 2 are possibility phases. And in the third stage, which is exploration, employees will begin to dabble with it, they'll begin to tinker with it, they'll begin to explore it a bit, and here's where leadership often makes a grave error. From a distance, when I have my feet in the water, you may think I'm up to my knees or to my chest. And managers and leaders often believe that when people begin to move towards the change, they're already committed, and they try to accelerate and move too quickly. But during the exploration phase, people need the 3 T's. They need time, they need training, and they need the tools to move towards the future. The 4th and final phase is commitment. And when people are committed to the change, what is critical is to celebrate even the smallest of wins, every victory, every advancement. What is also critical at this phase is to not fail to plant the seeds of the next change in the hearts and minds of those who have been the change champions. Because in this world of change, nothing remains the same. I'm Don Carmont.